For the past 10 years or so, Killer Mike has been working almost exclusively with LP for Run the Jewels. But that changed yesterday when he dropped his first solo track in 10 years, titled Run, featuring Young Thug and production from No ID. Now, if you aren't aware of Killer Mike is, pretty political, and he's an activist of sorts with a major focus in systemic racism and social inequalities. And, given that how prominent that is, and, that this track dropped on the 4th of July, we should probably talk about it. So let's get into it. This is not going to be like a full lyric breakdown or anything. This is going to be more of a focus actually on the video and some of the topics that Killer Mike has brought up. Now, speaking of the video, right out the gate, we start off with a little bit of an intro. And in this intro, we see a black man running through a field or a combat zone of sorts, all while being narrated by Dave Chappelle. Now, Dave Chappelle, however you may feel about him currently, that's totally up to you. But given what he's saying here, I think it's appropriate and it makes sense, like what he's trying to get across. And what he is trying to get across is essentially, we got to keep running. We can't let anything stop us. We got to keep it pushing. Even if someone gets gunned down, we got to keep going. And almost like how they did it on Normandy. That's essentially what he said there. And now, you can always think of that as big picture, and it could be applied to pretty much everyone. For example, if you want to accomplish your goals, you're not going to let anything get in your way. You're going to keep moving. You're going to keep it pushing. You're going to get through any roadblocks. But I think the main focus here, and I mean, pretty obviously from the video, is more of, for black people. They got to keep running. We got to keep pushing. And even more specifically, protecting black art, especially because they literally have a flag that says protect black art later in the video. Now, the protect black art part is something that I think it's the whole purpose of the song. And with the protect black art part, there's two places to look. The first one we can look at would be Dave Chappelle. Now, if you aren't aware, I mean, I'm not super familiar with it either, but in one of his recent comedy specials, Dave Chappelle said some things that people were not very fond of, to say the least, and just wasn't well received. Now, I haven't seen the special, so I can't really speak on that, but it's almost like you can kind of be like, okay, well, Killer Mike's putting him here because he's potentially going to get canceled or almost there, and he wants to be like, no, he's just doing him, he's doing his art. This is his black art, his comedy. That, I mean, however you may feel about it, go for it in the comments. Again, I only know limited information. I'm just going based off of what people say, because I, again, haven't seen the special myself and haven't really formed an opinion either way. The other point or other part of this black art or protect black art bit is with Young Thug. Young Thug, if you aren't aware, is under or has been charged or under investigation for RICO, as well as the majority of YSL. Now, a lot of times when people are hit with RICO, they can't really come back from it. It's almost like a death sentence for their career. Even if they were able to come back from it and get out of it, their career is going to be affected and it will suffer. It's not something that you can really, like I said, come back from. So that right out the gate is essentially, you can think of it as limiting his black art. You're not letting him do his thing or his music. And getting into the black art in this case, which is hip hop and rap, a lot of people, have stereotypes and generalizations of what hip hop is. They're like, oh, all they talk about is guns and violence and drugs and they demean women and all that. And while that is true, and there are parts of hip hop that do that, that is not the majority of it. The majority of it doesn't even do most of that. If you've listened to Killer Mike in the past, you know that that's not his main focus all the time. He'll bring it up every so often, but Killer Mike is more on the conscious side, you would say, more political, more, he's not going to be rapping about the stereotypical stuff. So, by hitting someone like Young Thug with Rico and locking them up, you're essentially like they're trying to cater it. You could think of it like, oh, you're trying to make it so the only hip hop and rap that's out there is all like the positive things. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's not really what most people are looking for in rap. I feel like that if that was the case, like Kendrick said on To Pimp a Butterfly, Killer Mike would have been platinum by now. Like you would have seen it. Like like people don't necessarily want the more conscious stuff, and that's fine. And then that's what's great about hip hop and rap. Like you have such a wide variety and so many like subgenres, and that's a whole nother discussion that I've had with people multiple times. Like, yeah, it'd be great if we actually had like set subgenres, because yes, in hip hop and rap we make our own subgenres and we classify things, but it's not necessarily categorized at a higher level. Like, yes, we, the listeners of hip hop and people who make hip hop, like know the difference between like drill and trap and boom bap and like all that. But the general listener probably doesn't. Like most people are probably like, oh, I don't listen to that rapidy rap stuff. I only listen to stuff that makes me feel something, or if they're really trying to get a point across, and then they listen to some pop bullshit. That rant aside, jeez, I did not mean to get into that like that. But with the rest of the song and the imagery that we see, Killer Mike is essentially, he's talking about all the things, like a few of the things, not all the things, a few of the things that he's gone through and the things that he's experienced, and, from then to now, sort of thing. And the main thing that we get throughout the video is more or less you can consider like a race war. Like it's black people versus white people, or, people of color versus white people. But I mean, it is definitely more black people versus white people because other people of color get treated differently. Like that is a fact. Like, for example, I'm Indian, and typically I feel like I get treated pretty well. Like I think most people are cool with me, or like with Indian people. But for example, if I was black and I was in a more predominantly white area, I wouldn't be surprised if I was going to be racially profiled, or if I walk into a store and people are watching me. Like, yes, that has happened to me, but not to the same level or frequency as black people may have experienced it. Now, the other thing to bring up with that, unfortunately, is what happened yesterday in Highland Park. If you aren't aware, there was a shooting at a 4th of July celebration, where 6 people, I believe, were killed and like 30 plus were injured. And the shooter was a white person, and they were treated completely differently than if a black person had did it. Like, I mean, we've seen what happened over the last few years. Like, black people are just almost irrationally being hurt more so for something that they did, or even if something they didn't do. Like, they could have just been doing nothing, and then they're just getting assaulted because they're assumed to be doing something. So it's just wild to think about. It's not appropriate in any way, and that's, I think, one of the things that Killer Mike's trying to get across, just in general, not necessarily in this song. Like, he wants to be like, yo, there's this inequality here. Why are white people being treated this way and black people being treated this way? Like, where is the equality there? If we're all meant to be just people in general, why are you treating people of a different skin tone differently? You know what I mean? And like I said in the video, that's essentially what we're getting. We're getting a race war to the extent of almost like a civil war sort of thing, because there's guns involved. And a lot of the imagery does feel like it's kind of older sort of thing. Like, not necessarily like right now, maybe like, because the area that they had the video in feels more like a field. It could just be somewhere in the Midwest or in the South, but it doesn't feel like someplace now, I guess. Like, it doesn't feel present. Like, it feels more like something in the past. But that could just be me looking into it differently. But, I mean, it could also be that if it was meant to be like a reflection of the past, like, this is what's been going on forever, essentially. This is these inequalities and this injustice, essentially, has been happening since the beginning. I mean, obviously we know that because of how like slavery. I mean, that's obviously one major point of it. But throughout the video, like I said, it's you see a lot of that fighting. And at the end of the day, yes, we don't actually see an outcome, I would say. There are many moments in the video where it looks like the black man was from the beginning is essentially winning the fight, but what we end on is essentially him doing which was pretty cool, like a superhero sort of punch like towards like the opposing army. And I thought that image was great too, because you're putting a black man above a white man literally because he's in the air like punching down, but two, you're putting him at like a superhero level, which I mean based on like Boogie's last album, like we need more black superheroes. Like it's putting it out there and just seeing it, like, because for me, like when I see someone that's brown and in like a situation where they're doing well or like they're accomplishing something that they want to do, like I feel great about it. So when it gets applied to black people, I'm sure that it's the same thing. Like just the representation is important. Aside from all that, the video itself, pretty well done, I would say. It got the point across way better than just the song alone. Because to be honest, when I listened to the song, I was kind of underwhelmed. Like, yeah, I get the idea, but it felt kind of simplistic. But that's not necessarily a bad thing now that I think about it. Like, keeping it simple makes it more impactful. And because it's simple, it has the potential to be like an anthem, kind of like Kendrick's All Right was. Like, I mean, that still is an anthem, to be honest. But like, it's a way to be like, nah, we got to keep moving. Like the community as a whole, we got to keep pushing. We got to protect black art. Now, speaking of the protect black art bit again, like that flag that they put up is impressive. And also because it's important because they say free Young Thug and free Gunna. So, that was pretty cool to have there. Especially because I think this was like the first tweet or IG post that's, out there saying it. But yeah, overall, I mean, I would say the song is cool. Like, if you're just going to listen to it, sure, it's fine. But I think the impact of the video and the fact that it came out on the 4th of July, it just makes it a little bit more important. Because, like I said, it's the 4th of July, which is a day that we celebrate America's independence. But we've gotten to the point where a lot of people, including myself, are like, what are we even celebrating? Like, we're living in a country where people are being treated inappropriately. Like, there's no equality across the board. Like, if you're black or another person of color, you're going to be treated like a second-class citizen or even lesser. You can't have, like, women's rights are being removed. Like, it's just, like, what are we even celebrating? Why are we celebrating these things when everything's not, how it should be, or like what the whole country's idea was supposed to be. So having this track come out on that day is impressive and important. And I'm actually surprised that more people haven't brought it up. But, I think that's most of what I needed to say. The main purpose of even talking about this track was mostly to start a conversation and see what you guys think. So with that said, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the track and what you gathered from it. Because, like, for me, like I said, it's very much just tackling the inequalities across the board, but also more specifically for rappers and people in hip hop. But yeah, let me know what you think. Also, like and subscribe if you want to see more rambles like this. And thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.